Picture this: a training ground outside Girona, warm July air, and three figures walking off a coach with their kit bags over their shoulders. Piero Hincapié, Viktor Gyökeres, Kai Havertz. They have just joined the rest of the Arsenal squad ahead of a warm weather training camp, and on the surface, this looks like a normal pre-season routine. Players arriving, bags being wheeled across tarmac, nothing dramatic, but do not be fooled by how ordinary that image looks. Behind that quiet arrival is one of the busiest and most consequential periods in recent Arsenal history. While those three men were stepping off that coach, phones across European football were buzzing with a different kind of story, a move for one of the most explosive attackers on the planet. A tug of war over a Brazilian midfielder who wants out of his current club. A surprise interest in an Argentine defender who was never supposed to be linked with North London. And a version of events involving a Swedish striker that completely contradicts everything we thought we knew 24 hours earlier. This is not a quiet summer for Arsenal. This is a summer where every signing, every stat, every quote from a rival manager is being measured against one single question. Can this club go from being champions to being untouchable? Here is what is actually at risk. Arsenal are the reigning Premier League champions. Mikel Arteta has the chance to do something no manager in the club's history has ever done: retain the title. That alone would be historic. But the landscape around him is shifting. Manchester City and Liverpool, the two clubs that have pushed Arsenal hardest in recent years, have both entered this season with new managers. New management often means new energy, a new identity, and sometimes a rival that plays with less predictability than before. So the stakes are simple. If Arsenal stand still this summer, the gap they have built could close. If they move well, the gap could become impossible to close. And right now, sitting at the centre of that decision is one name: Vinicius Jr. Before we go further, if you want this kind of clear-headed breakdown of every Arsenal story, separating what is confirmed from what is just noise, this is exactly the channel for that. Hit subscribe now so you do not miss the next update, because this story is moving fast and there are several threads to follow. Let's start with the biggest name on the list because it changes the entire complexion of Arsenal's summer. Vinicius Jr. currently plays for Real Madrid. That is not in dispute. He is 26 years old, he is on wages of £400,000 a week at the Bernabeu, and critically, he has only 1 year remaining on his contract. That final detail is the reason this entire conversation exists. A player entering the last 12 months of his deal becomes a completely different proposition for every rival club watching, because the summer decision for Real Madrid becomes urgent rather than optional. One report, attributed to a source close to the Telegraph, claims Arsenal are prepared to offer Vinicius the biggest contract in the club's history. His current terms at £400,000 a week would be improved upon, and the suggestion is that finance is not seen as a barrier to getting a deal over the line. I want to be precise here because precision matters more than excitement. This is a report of interest and financial willingness. It is not a confirmed transfer, there is no official bid on record, and Real Madrid have not been reported as accepting any approach. This is speculation with financial detail attached to it, not a done deal. Now here is where my own analysis comes in, because the financial detail is genuinely revealing, even if the transfer itself remains unconfirmed. Arsenal have paid big wages before. Mesut Ozil and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang were both on £350,000 a week during their peak years at the club. Bukayo Saka's new contract is worth around £365,000 a week. If Arsenal are willing to exceed £400,000 a week for a new arrival, that is not a small increase on the club's previous wage ceiling. That is a complete rewriting of it. And that detail alone tells you something important about where this club believes it now sits in world football. 2 years ago, that kind of financial commitment for an attacker with 1 year left on his contract would have felt out of character. Today, it is being reported as a genuine option. That shift in ambition is worth sitting with for a moment, regardless of whether the deal itself happens. There is also a wage complication worth naming honestly, because it was raised directly by supporters reacting to this exact situation. If Vinicius arrives on wages close to £500,000 a week, what happens to the internal pay structure that already exists for players like Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka? This is not a minor footnote. Wage structures inside dressing rooms are delicate. If one player arrives on significantly more money than the club's existing captain-level performers, other contracts inevitably come under pressure to be renegotiated. That is not opinion. That is simply how modern football wage economics function. So even in the purely hypothetical scenario where this deal happens, it would not be an isolated transaction. It would ripple through the entire wage bill. Now let's talk about why any of this interest exists in the first place. Because the statistics behind Vinicius are not rumour. They are measurable performance data, and they are extraordinary. In the top 5 leagues in Europe during the 25-26 season, Vinicius was the only player to record more than 300 touches in the opposition box. His total was 324. The next closest player was 54 touches behind him. Let that sink in for a second. That is not a marginal advantage over the rest of Europe's attacking talent. That is a gap so significant it borders on a different category of player entirely. Touches in the opposition box are one of the clearest indicators of a player's ability to get into dangerous, goal-threatening positions repeatedly across a season. Vinicius is not doing this occasionally, he is doing it more consistently than anyone else on the continent. And then there is the data that should genuinely worry two specific clubs. Against Liverpool, Vinicius has directly contributed to 7 goals in 6 career appearances. Against Manchester City, he has managed 10 direct goal contributions in 12 games. Add those together and you get 17 direct goal contributions in 18 total appearances against the two clubs that have been Arsenal's fiercest title rivals in recent seasons. That statistic is not speculation. That is documented history. If Arsenal were to sign a player with that specific record against those specific opponents, it does not just add attacking quality in the abstract, it targets the exact 2 rivals Arsenal need to overcome most directly. There is one more layer to this that deserves attention, and it involves history that has nothing to do with transfers at all. Arsenal have not won away at Anfield since 2012. They have not won away at the Etihad since 2016. Those are 2 long-standing away day curses that have survived multiple managerial eras. If a player with Vinicius' specific record against those 2 opponents were to join, the logical implication is that those curses would face their most serious challenge in over a decade. Again, I want to be clear that this remains firmly in hypothetical territory until any transfer is confirmed. But the pattern in the numbers is real, and it explains exactly why this rumour has generated so much attention, rather than being dismissed as background noise. Now let's move to a completely different situation, one that is further along and involves far more concrete developments. Bruno Guimarães. Bruno Guimarães currently plays for Newcastle United, and right now he is their captain. That matters because it tells you the size of the decision Newcastle are being asked to make. This is not a fringe player being moved on, this is the club captain. The situation on the ground is this. Arsenal have reportedly placed 3 separate verbal offers for Guimarães. Newcastle's official position is that formal talks have not yet begun. However, it is understood that verbal discussions are ongoing, and significantly, Newcastle's senior leadership is now directly involved in those conversations. When senior leadership becomes personally involved in a transfer discussion rather than leaving it purely to football departments, that is usually a signal that the club is taking the interest seriously, even while publicly downplaying it. Then came a more specific update. Arsenal are reportedly set for new club-to-club contact next week, specifically regarding Guimarães. Personal terms between the player and Arsenal are said to already be in place, which is a significant detail, because personal terms are often the easier part of any transfer to resolve. The harder part, the fee, is where this deal currently sits. A new proposal is expected to improve on a previous £70 million offer that has already been floated. Whether that improved proposal succeeds depends entirely on Newcastle's willingness to sell and their valuation of the player. I want to add some independent context here because it clarifies why Newcastle's resistance is louder than usual this summer. Newcastle have already lost 2 significant players this transfer window. Sandro Tonali departed for Tottenham Hotspur. Anthony Gordon left for Barcelona. Both of those moves have already happened. They are completed transfers, not rumours. Losing 2 established first-team players in one summer puts enormous pressure on a club to protect its remaining core. Bruno Guimarães, as captain, sits right at the centre of that remaining core. That context explains why Newcastle's manager addressed this situation directly and carefully rather than dismissing it outright. Newcastle's manager was asked directly about Guimarães' future and did not rule out a departure. He confirmed he has spoken privately with the player, but was careful to state that private conversations remain private. He made clear that the final decision on Guimarães' future rests with the club's chief executive and sporting director, not with him personally. When specifically asked to compare this situation to Alexander Isak's departure to Liverpool last summer, a transfer worth £125 million that has already been fully completed, the manager declined to draw a direct parallel, saying each situation needs to be judged on its own terms. He did confirm that Guimarães remains the club's captain, described him as a fantastic person and player, and said everyone at the club would want him to stay. He also confirmed a logistical detail that Guimarães is expected back in training around July the 31st, having been given an extended break following a deep run in an international competition over the summer. My own reading of this is straightforward. Nothing here has been confirmed as a completed transfer. What has changed is the tone. A club captain not being ruled out of a departure by his own manager, combined with senior leadership becoming personally involved in conversations, combined with reports of personal terms already being agreed, tells you this situation has moved well beyond speculation and into genuine negotiation territory. It is not confirmed, but it is serious. There is also a contingency plan attached to this story, and it is worth covering because it shows how Arsenal are thinking beyond a single target. If the move for Bruno Guimarães does not succeed, reports suggest Arsenal will turn their attention to Alex Scott, who currently plays for Bournemouth. Chelsea have already placed a £64 million bid for Scott, and Bournemouth are said to be unwilling to sell despite his contract situation running down and his own decision not to sign a contract extension. That detail about his contract running down is significant because it usually increases the pressure on a selling club over time, even if that club currently insists it has no intention of selling. Right now, this remains firmly in the category of an alternative plan rather than an active pursuit, but it is a plan worth remembering, because if the Guimarães situation collapses, this is likely to become the next major storyline. Now let's move to a name that genuinely surprised people when it appeared attached to Arsenal, Christian Romero. Romero currently plays for Tottenham Hotspur. Arsenal have been described as surprise contenders for his signature, competing with both Inter Milan and Barcelona for his services. Reports indicate Romero himself is open to a move to Serie A, which is worth noting because player openness to a specific destination often shapes how realistic a move actually is, regardless of which clubs are circling. Tottenham are reportedly demanding around £42.5 million for their defender, although that asking price is said to have room to fall if it helps complete a broader transfer strategy on their end. My honest analysis here is that this remains one of the more speculative stories on this list. A defender moving from one Premier League rival directly to Arsenal is always going to generate significant reaction, precisely because of the fierce rivalry involved. But with Inter Milan and Barcelona also in the picture, and with the player himself reportedly leaning towards Serie A, this is a name to watch rather than a deal to expect imminently. I am flagging it clearly as a rumour, and nothing more than that at this stage. Finally, let's address a story that actually contradicts an earlier version of events, because this is exactly the kind of moment where accuracy matters more than excitement. There have been suggestions that Arsenal have made an offer for Viktor Gyökeres, the Swedish striker. However, a more recent account directly disputes this. According to this version, Arsenal have not offered Gyökeres at all. Instead, it is Atletico Madrid who have become interested in him, and the reason given is specific. Atletico are reportedly concerned that Julian Alvarez will not change his mind about wanting to leave the club, and Gyökeres is being considered as a potential replacement option for Atletico rather than a target for Arsenal. I think this is one of the most important things to highlight in this entire breakdown, because it shows exactly why treating every headline as confirmed fact is a mistake. Two different accounts exist about the same player, and they point in completely different directions. One says Arsenal are interested. The other says Arsenal are not involved at all, and the real interest is coming from a different club entirely, for a different reason entirely. Until there is clearer alignment between these accounts, the responsible position is to treat Gyökeres to Arsenal as unconfirmed and contested, not as an active pursuit. Meanwhile, away from the noise of arrows pointing in different directions, there is one piece of information that is entirely solid and does not require any hedging at all. Piero Hincapié, Viktor Gyökeres and Kai Havertz have physically joined up with the rest of the Arsenal squad ahead of their warm weather training camp in Girona. This is confirmed, present tense, happening now. While transfer rumours swirl around names coming in and potentially going out, the existing group is already doing the unglamorous work of pre-season preparation together. So where does all of this leave us? Let's separate what is fact from what is rumour, clearly, one final time, because that clarity is the entire point of this analysis. It is confirmed that Arsenal are the reigning Premier League champions. It is confirmed that Manchester City and Liverpool enter this season under new managers. It is confirmed that Vinicius Jr currently plays for Real Madrid on £400,000 a week with 1 year remaining on his contract. It is confirmed through verified season-long data that Vinicius recorded more touches in the opposition box than any other player in Europe's top 5 leagues last season, and that his combined output against Liverpool and Manchester City stands at 17 direct goal contributions in 18 appearances. It is confirmed that Arsenal have not won away at Anfield since 2012 or away at the Etihad since 2016. It is confirmed that Bruno Guimarães is Newcastle's current captain, that Newcastle have already lost Sandro Tonali and Anthony Gordon this summer, and that Newcastle's manager did not rule out a further departure when directly asked. It is confirmed that Piero Hincapié, Viktor Gyökeres and Kai Havertz have joined the Arsenal squad for their warm weather training camp. What remains rumour, and should be treated as such, includes any suggestion that Vinicius Jr has agreed to join Arsenal, any suggestion that a fee or full personal terms have been finalised for Bruno Guimarães, any suggestion that Christian Romero is close to leaving Tottenham for Arsenal specifically, and any claim about Viktor Gyökeres' transfer situation. given that two directly conflicting versions of that story currently exist. This is a summer where Arsenal are being talked about as more than just defending champions. They are being talked about as a club capable of reshaping the entire hierarchy of English football, if even one or two of these stories move from rumour into reality. Manchester City and Liverpool have every reason to watch this closely, not because of panic, but because history in football tends to repeat one pattern very reliably. The champions who stand still get caught. The champions who keep adding get further away. Right now, Arsenal look like a club determined to be in the second category. If you want the next update the moment any of these stories move from rumour to confirmed fact, make sure you are subscribed, because this transfer window is only just getting started, and there is a lot more still to come.